Welcome to Whispers of History, where sleep and stories blend like old ink on parchment. If you're here, chances are you're either deeply curious about the past or just very tired. Either way, we've got you covered. Now, tonight's tale wanders down a quietly absurd road into the Andean highlands of 18th century Peru, where, believe it or not, people threw birthday parties for potatoes. No, really. With music, dancing, and heartfelt speeches to celebrate their favorite root vegetable. Go ahead, like the video if your eyes are already half closed, and subscribe if you're the kind of person who enjoys nodding off to obscure agricultural rituals. We'd love to hear where you're listening from and what time it is there. Drop it in the comments if your fingers aren't too sleepy. Now take a breath, feel the day slowing down. You're here, the past is quiet, the potatoes are waiting. Well, let's ease into tonight's journey. You walk slowly up a dusty slope, your shoes sinking slightly into the sun-warmed soil. The air is thin here, high in the Andes, where clouds get caught on jagged peaks like laundry on a clothesline. A breeze slips past you with the faint smell of clay and boiled tubers. Birds wheel overhead, but quietly, as if they too are waiting for something to begin. A man passes you with a serious expression and a bundle of flowers. Not for a lover, for a potato. You've arrived on the morning of the annual Fiesta La Papa. Yes, this is exactly what it sounds like. A birthday party for potatoes. And you, lucky you, have been invited. The sun is gentle today, not yet the sharp needle it becomes by midday. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the tuneless warm-up of a pan flute, possibly a child, possibly someone's uncle. The line between those two is often blurred here. You make your way toward the village, where preparations are in full swing. Long tables are being set, lined with woven cloth and small hand-carved figurines shaped like, you guessed it, potatoes. Someone is arranging garlands of dried herbs into a kind of rustic crown for the honorary potato, which rests on a red velvet pillow. It's a noble Andean variety, purplish-black, slightly lumpy, named something unpronounceable unless your first language is Quechua. A woman hands you a small wooden cup of a mildly fermented corn drink that tastes like what would happen if apple cider forgot how to be sweet. It's warm and oddly comforting. She says nothing, only nods and points toward a nearby circle of men deep in discussion about the emotional intelligence of root vegetables. This, you begin to realize, is not a joke. Potatoes have saved lives here. They've fed empires. They've survived freezing nights and thin soils and Spanish colonizers. And here, in this corner of the 18th century, people celebrate them the way some modern folks celebrate dogs. Or, the major historical fact, potatoes weren't just food here. They were currency, sacred offerings, even indexed in colonial tax documents. The Spanish crown once recorded more than 3,000 distinct potato varieties grown by Andean communities. Some villages could be identified by their signature spud. As an old man passes by carrying a feathered hat and a tiny flute carved from bone. He's humming a lullaby to the potatoes. Not about them, to them. No one finds this strange, except maybe you. Historians still debate whether these rituals were purely celebratory or had deeper religious roots. Some say they were holdovers from pre-Incan agricultural rites. Others insist they evolved under colonial repression as a subtle form of cultural resistance. Either way, the potatoes don't seem to mind. You wander through the village square. The sun climbs lazily. A dog sleeps next to a woven basket full of tiny red-skinned potatoes as if guarding them, or maybe just enjoying the shade. And as you take another sip of your lukewarm, a strange peace settles over you. You begin to understand. Not everything needs to be efficient or reasonable. Sometimes it's enough to crown a potato, play a flute, and sit in the sun. Now just don't forget, this is only the beginning. You probably won't make it through this day. Not awake, at least. The first song begins without warning. A man with leathery hands lifts a flute to his mouth and lets out a long, breathy note that seems to sigh rather than sing. A second joins him on a kind of box drum, tapping out a rhythm that feels like footsteps through thick fog. And just like that, the birthday has started. Someone begins sprinkling flower petals over the potato. Not a metaphor, actual flower petals. A girl with two long braids gently waves incense smoke toward it like she's blessing a royal newborn. You're told this one's name is Puka Sweet Red, a heritage tuber with allegedly calming energies and excellent stew performance. You sit down on a hand-woven mat that makes your lower back think some very impolite things about your decision-making skills. But the ground is cool, and the air is filled with the smell of roasted tubers and damp grass. A local farmer gives a long speech to the potato. He begins with thanks. He moves on to the weather. He ends with what sounds like a poem about roots, survival, and an unfaithful neighbor who left during last year's harvest. The crowd nods solemnly. The potato says nothing. Your major historical fact arrives disguised in anecdote. In 1781, amid an uprising against colonial authorities led by II, villagers hid their potato stores in underground ice pits to prevent seizure. The Spanish couldn't find them. The rebels ate well. Potatoes quite literally fueled resistance. A curious detail emerges. Each family here cultivates a potato with a name, not just the species, a name. Some are poetic Little Thunder, Moonskin. Others are oddly personal, Regret, or Maria's Better Choice. Apparently there was drama. There is always drama. One elder claims that if you whisper your dreams to the eyes of a potato before planting it, they'll grow more loyal. Whether this is true is anyone's guess. Historians are unsure if such beliefs were widespread or just the product of one overly sentimental farmer in 1742. Lunch is served. Naturally, it's potatoes, but in more forms than you thought possible. Steamed, fried, mashed again, but with cheese, shaved into soups, carved into what looks like a miniature cathedral which no one dares eat. A boy chases a chicken through the square. The chicken wins. You notice how slow everything feels here. Not lazy, intentional. Like every motion is a gift and time stretches itself just a little longer to let things settle. Even the clouds take their time drifting past. As another man leans over and murmurs, "Next year it'll be the white and purple one's turn. She's almost ready." While you nod like that makes perfect sense. Maybe it does. You lie back on your mat. A drum taps somewhere nearby, steady and slow, like a heartbeat falling asleep. And so do you, almost. You wake up or half-wake, really still nestled in the soft quilt of mountain silence. The drumbeat is gone now, replaced by the whisper of wind moving through potato leaves. Yes, actual fields of them just beyond the square. Rows and rows stretching like a sleepy green patchwork toward the distant curve of a snow-brushed peak. A woman in a wide straw hat leans down next to you and offers a slice of oca, a tangy tuber cousin that tastes like a sour apple made friends with a carrot. It's slightly cold. It's also breakfast. You thank her with a nod and she wanders away humming a song you're fairly sure is about rainfall and goats, or heartbreak. In the Andes, it's often both. You're taken now on a gentle walk through the potato fields. A guide barefoot, sun-wrinkled, wearing an alpaca wool vest that looks like it's seen decades, tells you this land has grown potatoes for longer than anyone can count. Some say since the world began, he says, without a hint of irony, then he laughs. But others say just a few thousand years, depends who you ask. He's right. Scholars today date potato cultivation in this region to around 8,000 years ago. Long before the Inca. Long before Spain, before maps and monarchs and indoor plumbing. These high-altitude crops were and still are miracle workers thriving where little else could. He pauses beside a knobby little potato plant and crouches down, brushing the dirt with the reverence of someone greeting a relative. This one, she's from my grandfather's line. We call her La, the one who waits. Always late to sprout, but worth it. You smile, a potato with a personality trait. It tracks. A strange cultural tidbit arises here. Some families bury miniature doll-sized offerings near their potato fields at planting time, tiny beds, fake coins, even plastic sunglasses. Not for the farmers, for the potatoes. The belief, a happy potato grows bigger, it's absurd, it's charming, it's oddly hard to dismiss. The air is thinner now as you climb toward a terraced hillside. Each level is like a step in time, old stone retaining walls, dirt paths woven like braids, and scarecrows wearing tattered colonial coats, left behind from some ancestor's rebellion or fashion experiment. A rooster watches you pass like a suspicious landlord. You ask your guide if he ever gets tired of potatoes. He squints at you. Do you ever get tired of the sun? I'll point taken. Historians still puzzle over the precise methods ancient Peruvians used to breed new varieties. Some claim they used lunar calendars and chance. Others believe it was just generations of trial, error, and really stubborn optimism. Both are probably true. Potatoes were and are acts of love disguised as food. You pass a shallow irrigation ditch where a potato floats serenely decorated with marigolds and trailing a ribbon. It's drifting like a slow boat to nowhere. You don't ask why. You're starting to understand. The less you ask, the more you see. You rest beneath a tree whose species no one can quite name, and a little boy approaches with a carved flute and a potato he's painted with a face. It's smiling. So is he. He tells you the potato's name is Mr. Still. And for a brief, weirdly moving moment, you feel like you've just been introduced to royalty. Later in the afternoon, the village gathers again, this time near a circular stone platform where the potato dances are about to begin. You're handed a blanket not because it's cold, though it is a bit chilly, but because you'll want something soft for your soul. That's the exact phrase they use. You take it seriously. The drums begin again. Flutes follow. A woman in a wide skirt that sways like water steps into the ring and starts to move. Each turn of her foot seems to trace an invisible spiral in the dust. Her hands mimic planting, harvesting, giving thanks. It's graceful, it's hypnotic. You suspect the dance is for the potatoes, but also for the people who remember them. Your historical fact for the day: in colonial times, Spanish authorities tried to limit indigenous rituals, but agricultural festivals were often tolerated, especially when they seemed harmless. That's how many Andean communities encoded resistance into celebration. A dance for a potato was safer than a speech about freedom. Now this one, though, this is both. A slow procession follows. Elders carry baskets of heritage potatoes, some no bigger than marbles, others so oddly shaped they resemble sleeping animals. Each has its name, each is announced like a guest of honor. When the one that survived the hailstorm is introduced, the applause is genuine. So is the gratitude. Nearby, children are making potato stamps, cutting shapes into halved tubers and dipping them in natural dyes made from beetroot and ash. You're offered one to try. Yours ends up looking more like an ink blot than an animal, but no one judges. A girl next to you proudly holds up a potato heart, then eats it. Because of course. Then comes the storytelling. A man with a feathered hat and a weathered voice begins. Once long ago there was a woman who married a potato spirit. The tale is odd, meandering, full of love and loss and lessons about overwatering. Half of it is probably invented on the spot. All of it feels true. A surprising detail slips in. Some older farmers claim to dream in colors of potatoes. They say the hues show them what variety to plant next season. Scholars smile politely at this but secretly keep notes. It's unclear whether this is dream divination or just too much. You hear someone snore lightly nearby. A man who ate too many fried mashed potatoes stuffed with spiced meat. You understand, you're getting sleepy too. As the sun begins to drift lower, casting gold on the fields, someone quietly places a small crown on the honorary potato. It's made of woven corn husks and tiny white flowers. The moment is almost sacred. You find yourself holding your breath as if not to disturb it. Then a sudden gust of wind sends petals spinning into the air like confetti. A boy laughs. The dog from earlier chases one and misses by a mile. You wrap the blanket around your shoulders. It smells like earth and wool and afternoon warmth. And for a moment, everything is still. Mr. Still would be proud. Evening settles with the softness of old parchment folding itself closed. The sky, once a harsh blue glare, fades into a bruised lavender. Shadows stretch like gossip between the trees. Someone lights the first of many small fires, and soon the square glows with flickers of orange and the scent of something rich and starchy wafting through the dusk. You sit on a low stone just warm from the day's sun beside a small gathering of elders. They speak Quechua, their words rising and falling like a lullaby you almost understand. One of them is slicing potatoes not for cooking but to read them. She explains in slow Spanish that the texture, color, and shape can predict next season's weather. A slice that turns blue overnight might mean early frost or heartbreak. It's flexible. Now tonight, she says, she's slicing to ask the spirit of the potato if the next planting will go well. And if her daughter should marry that man with too many teeth. The answer apparently depends on the starch content. You nod, as one does when superstition begins to make alarming sense. Here's your historical nugget. Pre-Columbian Andean peoples practiced divinatory agriculture. Not only reading potatoes but consulting coca leaves, animal bones, and the clouds. It wasn't science. But it was a kind of pattern recognition long before anyone drew a chart or tested soil pH. As a young man next to you chuckles as he roasts a batch of tiny potatoes called. They're white, shriveled, and look more like forgotten candy than food. He explains these were freeze-dried naturally, left out overnight at high altitudes, frozen by the cold, then stomped on in the morning. Repeated for days, like the world's slowest, coldest cooking method. Apparently they last for years, like heartbreak or fruitcake. Historians are still unsure how early Andeans figured out freeze-drying. Some suspect it happened by accident, others believe it was intentional, a survival hack born of centuries spent in an unpredictable mountain climate. Either way, the result is a snack that's practically eternal. It's delicious, in a dusty, chewy kind of way. Someone brings out a drum again, but softer this time. A lullaby rhythm, even the dog lies down. The fire crackles. You feel the day beginning to curl in on itself like a fern folding for the night. The woman beside you hands you a potato shaped like a heart. It's not cut that way, it just grew like that. She says simply, it's lucky. Then she laughs and adds, unless you eat it, then it's a stomachache. Another gust of wind whispers through the square. Bits of ash float up like tiny ghosts. You look at the sky, stars beginning to appear like ancient punctuation marks. You feel, not for the first time, that time has softened here, stretched itself thin over hills and harvests. And just maybe over you. Night has fully arrived now in that quiet, serious way it does in the highlands. No hum of streetlights, no glow of city windows, just stars, thousands of them, pinned above like offerings themselves. You lie back on your borrowed blanket, the earth still warm beneath you as the final part of the celebration begins. It's called the Circle of Memories. Elders one by one rise and speak to the crowd, not with speeches, with stories, potato stories of course. The first man stands, adjusts his poncho, and clears his throat. This potato, he says, holding up a bumpy purple one, grew during the year the river froze for 2 weeks. We had nothing but each other and this kind. He pauses. It tasted awful, but it reminded us to keep chewing. The crowd laughs. It's not a joke, but somehow it is. Then comes a woman with long braids and a shawl heavy with embroidered llamas. She tells of her grandmother who taught her to bury coins with the potatoes to make them ambitious. One year, a batch of golden potatoes grew in the shape of fists. No one ate them. They were too proud. As a curious detail emerges again, some villagers keep a potato diary. Not for themselves, for the plant. Each season they note the weather, how the crop behaved, what emotions they were feeling when they harvested. One entry reportedly read, "Today you came up early, I was also early, we both had hope." You begin to suspect the potatoes are not just plants here. They are mirrors. They grow what you give them: soil, care, songs, or silence. Your major fact to chew on. By the mid-1700s, even Europe had caught potato fever, though reluctantly at first. In France, potatoes were once banned for being unfit for human consumption. Meanwhile, here in the Andes, they were being crowned and sung to like. Historians still debate whether the reverence was religious or practical. Most likely, it was both. Faith and hunger have always been strange bedfellows, especially in places where one could solve the other. Someone passes around warm slices of papa a la potatoes with a creamy, spicy yellow sauce. It tastes like comfort and sleep. A child curls up next to you, thumb in mouth, potato in hand. You don't ask questions anymore. The fire dims. The stars seem to breathe. You close your eyes, and for the briefest moment you swear you hear the potatoes whispering back. Morning returns in a hush, like someone tiptoeing back into a room they left too loudly. The first light spills over the mountains in slow ribbons, turning the village square gold one cobblestone at a time. Roosters begin their dramatic declarations, as if no one would have guessed that dawn follows night. You sit up, still wrapped in your borrowed blanket, greeted by the scent of ashes, dewy grass, and something unmistakably fried. A woman nearby is already at work over a pan, turning sliced potatoes in oil with a rhythm that feels more meditative than culinary. She doesn't speak, just nods toward the food. Breakfast speaks for itself. You accept a plate, thin, crispy slices topped with something tangy and green that may or may not be edible herbs. Probably is. Maybe. The taste is complex, earthy, salty, and faintly bitter. You chew slowly, feeling like you're part of a ritual even if you missed the instructions. A group of children runs past you in mismatched sandals, carrying what appear to be maracas made from dried potatoes. You've stopped questioning these things. One of them turns back, holds up a potato with googly eyes glued to it, and says with complete confidence, "This one is the mayor." Then vanishes around a corner. Today is the second day of celebration. A slower day. A day for honoring potato ancestors, both plant and human. The village cemetery lies just beyond the ridge, dotted with white crosses and uneven stones. Families gather there with small baskets not of flowers but of potatoes, each one carefully chosen, polished, and wrapped in cloth. They place them on graves, whisper names, tell stories. Some graves are so old the names have worn off the stones, but the potatoes still come. It's said that to forget a potato is to forget a year of your own life. So here, memory is cultivated like a crop. Here's your historical moment. During famines in the 18th century, potatoes were so crucial to survival that some communities developed seed banks, not for humans but for potatoes. Specific varieties were passed down like heirlooms, stored in clay jars buried in cold soil, protected with a seriousness usually reserved for holy relics. One woman you meet explains that her family still grows ghost eyes, a pale-skinned potato with soft pink speckles. The variety almost vanished during a frost in 1745, but her great-great-grandmother saved 5 tubers by sleeping with them wrapped in her shawl until spring. "We keep them going," she says, "so we don't forget her hands." The cemetery is quiet. The wind here doesn't whistle, it sighs. A little boy places a tiny potato on a stone marked only with the year 1783. He salutes. You try not to tear up, it would feel intrusive. As a cultural oddity appears, some tombstones here bear potato carvings. Not angels, not birds, potatoes carved in high detail. It might seem silly until you remember how many lives they've fed, how many winters they've endured. Suddenly it feels appropriate, noble even. And historians remain divided on whether these rituals were responses to colonial suppression of indigenous religion or natural extensions of agrarian spirituality. Either way, they endured, like the potatoes themselves. By the time you return to the village square, someone has set up a long table draped in embroidered cloth. On it are rows of small bowls, each filled with mashed potatoes from different varieties. A taste test. To remember the tongues of the past, the sign says. You try 7 kinds, one is nutty, one is dry, one tastes like sadness and garlic, it's your favorite. As after lunch, another quiet miracle of potatoes in a form you couldn't invent on your own, you join a group of villagers walking toward the oldest part of town. The houses here are low, stone-walled, with doors small enough to require a bow of the head. You're told these homes have seen centuries. Some of them have earthen cellars still used to store seed potatoes through the long Andean winter. You're invited inside one. The walls are rough, the air cool. In the corner, a stacked shrine of sorts, candles, a few coins, dried herbs, and in the center a bowl of potatoes, not cooked, not decorated. Just there, resting as if waiting for their turn to speak. This is where the family keeps their first harvest. Each year, the first 3 potatoes pulled from the soil are placed here in thanks. No one eats them. They stay until the next season's first pull replaces them. So the house always remembers where the food came from, someone says. And there it is, your historical note for today. Archaeologists have found storage chambers like this in ancient Andean dwellings, with clear evidence that certain potatoes were preserved, even ritually entombed. Some with wrappings, some buried with the dead. Food, after all, wasn't just survival, it was continuity. As outside, a girl shows you her family's potato stamps, patterns carved into tubers and pressed onto walls in crimson dye. Some are floral, some geometric. One looks suspiciously like a llama playing a flute. This one is for fertility, she says. For crops or bobbies, depends what you're planting. She hands you a stamp and lets you try. You choose a blank wall and press carefully. The print is crooked and faint. She nods kindly and says, "That one is for humble beginnings." As the sun angles west, a group of musicians begins to play again, but softly now. No drums, just flutes and a gentle harp whose strings sound like wind through reeds. You sit again, letting the sound curl around you. A nearby elder is telling a story about the time a potato turned green and was accused of sorcery. "It wasn't," he adds. "It just rolled behind a shelf too long." Still, it caused a week-long household panic and a 3-hour village meeting. A potato tribunal. You laugh quietly, so does he. But you both nod as if you'd attend that meeting again if needed. As evening arrives, you notice something peculiar. No one says goodbye to the potatoes. Not really. They just walk away slowly, like leaving a friend who always lingers. You do the same. And as the shadows lengthen and the last notes of flute drift down the path, you start to feel it again. That strange, warm sense that everything here grows with memory. The third morning arrives not with ceremony, but with the scent of boiling water and fresh earth. You stir from sleep to the sound of stones being shifted, the kind of slow, methodical clinking that suggests someone is cooking breakfast under a pile of rocks. And indeed, they are. Today is day a traditional earth oven feast. Villagers gather outside the fields, stacking stones into a small dome over a fire, heating them until they're glowing. Then comes the layering, hot stones, damp straw, potatoes obviously, oca, chunks of Andean cheese, maybe an unlucky guinea pig or two, then more straw, then a blanket of soil. The mountain does the rest. You're told to wait patiently. Good things take time, especially when buried. You're handed a mug of something thick and green. You ask what it is. The answer is medicine, followed by a shrug. It tastes like mint, bark, and something that might be algae. Your left eye twitches briefly, but your sinuses are very clear. Nearby, a group of teenagers is rehearsing a song they've written to thank the potatoes for not being picky. One verse goes, "Some plants need sun, some cry for rain. But potatoes say, this'll do." It's not winning any awards, but it gets applause. Today's historical note grows directly from the soil. Andean agricultural practices were centuries ahead of their time. Farmers built terraced fields to manage erosion, developed rotational planting systems, and even created microclimates using strategically placed rocks. Their potato yields, adjusted for altitude and terrain, rivaled anything in Europe. What's more, they cataloged their crops with precision, color, size, taste, water needs. Some fields were known by their potato moods. This one's good when the rains come early. This one sulks if the moon is wrong. that kind of thing. A delightful oddity surfaces as you walk along the ridge. A small shrine built into the side of a hill is shaped like a potato, rough and round and somewhat lopsided. Inside, dried flowers, a few small coins, and a bronze spoon. Offerings, your guide says, so the potatoes don't turn bitter next year. Historians are unsure if such shrines were part of broader Incan religion or hyper-local traditions. But they appear all over the Andes, often tucked into corners of old farms, ignored by tourists, honored by grandmothers. Back at the earth is being peeled away like a secret. Steam erupts from the mound. Everyone claps. It's the kind of applause usually reserved for weddings or when someone finally fixes the village radio. The food is handed out on banana leaves and scraps of cloth. It smells like soil and heaven. You take a bite of roasted, sweet, nutty, slightly peppery. It's the taste of endurance, of comfort earned. A child offers you a rock she found in the ashes. It looks vaguely like a face. This is the spirit of the oven, she says. You don't ask follow-up questions, you carry it with you. By afternoon, the celebration has turned reflective. People gather under a wide awning made of stretched wool and woven straw, sipping cool drinks and swapping stories. There is laughter, yes, but also a calmness, like the village itself is exhaling after a long, joyful breath. You're shown a large woven book, a kind of textile journal passed down through generations. It doesn't have words, just patterns, rows and rows of tiny symbols, each representing a harvest year, a type of potato, a weather memory. Red means hail, green means abundance. Yellow, oddly, means a year someone important forgot something, but we forgave them. The woman showing it to you points at one row and says, "This was when my grandfather planted too early, but the potatoes forgave him." Here's your historical anchor, Quipus. The Incan knot records weren't just for accounting. Some scholars believe were used to track agricultural data, seasonal changes, and crop yields. Modern researchers are still trying to decode them fully. They agree on one thing: memory here was never just oral, it was woven, knotted, grown. Of another peculiar tradition, some villagers believe in listening potatoes. These are not consumed, they are kept on shelves near doorways or in kitchens to absorb gossip and mood. If a household feels tense, the potato may sprout early. If everyone's relaxed, it stays still. You spot one on a windowsill, it has eyes, lots of them, judgy ones. A man offers you a carved flute shaped like a tuber. He plays it, it sounds terrible, he knows. Only works during rain, he says. Potato songs don't like dry air. You both nod as if this is a common musical problem. Later, you walk past the same old field where it all began. The honorary potato is still there, slightly shriveled but noble. A girl brushes dust from its velvet pillow. She whispers to it. You catch one word, gracias. The sun dips lower, staining the mountains pink. A quiet falls, not empty, but full like the pause after the last note of a lullaby. You sit near the shrine again, hands in your lap, heart oddly full. You still don't know exactly how you got here. But you're in no hurry to leave. The fourth morning is cooler, almost shy. Mist clings to the hills like it's uncertain whether to stay or melt away. You rise slowly, your bones oddly in sync with the rhythm of this place now. No alarms, no hustle. Just the weight of a wool blanket and the scent of potatoes boiled with mint floating in from some far-off kitchen. Now today is quieter. Intentionally so, it's called El Los the Day of Silences. A time to reflect, to remember, to listen to the soil. You're told in hushed tones that on this day the potatoes are listening too, whatever that means. At the edge of the village, people walk single file up a worn dirt path, each carrying a small offering. Not food, not money, something personal, a worn shoe, a broken cup. A stone with initials carved into it. You follow, holding nothing at first. Then remember the little oven rock the child gave you, that will do. And at the summit is a circle of stones, ancient and mostly sunken. A grandmother stands there already, humming softly, eyes closed. She places a single potato on one of the stones, then walks away without a word. The next person does the same. No speeches today, no pan flutes, just footfalls and breath and wind. Now you place your stone gently. It sits there like it belongs, maybe it does. The historical detail here feels especially quiet. Pre-Columbian Andean societies often marked the agricultural calendar not just with festivals but with days of enforced stillness. Fields were left untouched. No planting, no harvesting. Sometimes no talking until noon. The land, they said, needed a moment to dream. You walk slowly back into the village where the market is open but hushed. People trade in gestures, in glances, in whispered greetings. Even the dog is quieter today. It trots beside a cart full of woven sacks that smell faintly of garlic and secrets. At one stall, a man sells carved potato amulets. Some have little faces. Some are just smooth and warm in the hand. You pick one that fits your palm like a worry stone and ask, "What's this one for?" Oh, he shrugs, "That one's just because." You buy it, of course you do. It's an unexpected moment. A girl sings under her breath while sorting potatoes by shape, round, oval, spiral, twin. The song is in Quechua, soft and rhythmic. You only catch one translated word, a companion. You realize then here potatoes are never solitary. They grow in clusters. They're remembered in families. Named, nurtured, passed down. Each one is someone's companion in the long cycle of soil to sky. The mist lifts by midday, revealing a different kind of light, golden, soft, the color of straw and old parchment. The square slowly fills again, not with celebration but with intention. People sit in circles, weaving. Not baskets or blankets this time, but stories. It's the start of El Laws, the weaving of roots. An annual tradition where families recall the history of their potato lines. Not just dates and yields, feelings, arguments, acts of courage. Everyone adds a thread to a communal tapestry, using wool dyed with the color that best describes their memory. A boy adds green for the year our neighbor saved our seeds during a flood. A woman adds red for anger at the worms that ate half our harvest. As a man adds pale blue for missing my father, who never stopped talking to his potatoes. You're handed a small piece of thread undyed. They tell you that one's for visitors. You can add whatever memory you've gathered here. You choose to tie it near the red thread, and for some reason that feels right. The historical insight flows easily. Many Andean communities preserved knowledge through textiles, not just for trade or clothing but as data storage. Some woven patterns represent rainfall patterns. Others map the moon cycle. Some are simply feelings that didn't have words. To wear a shawl was sometimes to carry an entire village's memory. As a quirky detail emerges during lunch, someone mentions that a potato once won a beauty contest. You laugh, but they're serious. Apparently, one year the largest, smoothest potato was crowned Papa and given a sash. The winner was displayed at every house for a week and given a small carved throne. She was very proud, someone says with a wink. You sit beside an old man who has painted tiny eyes on all his potatoes. So they can watch the sky, he tells you. They miss it underground. You nod. Again, this makes more sense than it should. Historians remain puzzled by how such deep cultural meaning developed around a vegetable. Was it reverence, dependence, survival? Likely all of the above. But no other crop on earth has this much lore, this much story, this much personality. By the evening, the tapestry is rolled up, not to be seen again until next year. It will be stored in a clay jar, sealed with wax, and placed in the oldest home in the village. So no one forgets what the roots remember. You walk home in silence, a thread still clinging to your sleeve. So some memories, it seems, don't want to be untied. The fifth day begins with the sky unsure of itself. Clouds half scattered, sunlight poking through like a child sneaking peeks during hide-and-seek. The village is slower today, as if even the wind is taking its time. You sit by a small fire, sipping warm tea which smells like mint but whispers like rosemary. It's meant to settle the stomach and possibly the soul. So today is for exchange, not coins, not bargains, but seeds. You're led to a narrow path flanked with low stone walls, where dozens of villagers have gathered with cloth bundles tied tightly and placed on wooden boards. Inside each bundle, seed potatoes. Labeled, sorted, some painted with symbols to prevent mixing. The care is striking. You've seen toddlers treated with less caution. This is El Lo's The Trade of Flavors, a barter system that has existed in some form since long before the Spanish arrived. Today's trades aren't made for profit, they're made for preservation. If a village only plants what it loves, it risks forgetting what it needs. So every year, communities swap flavors, textures, and memories. A woman offers a red-fleshed potato whose name means bleeding heart. In return, she asks for one that tastes like it remembers the snow. Somehow, the other villager knows exactly which one to give. Your historical takeaway: the Inca Empire relied on an intricate system of seed exchange among highland communities. Roads were built not just for armies but for tubers. Royal runners carried potatoes in slings, and storage centers kept hundreds of varieties secure in clay-walled coolness. This diversity saved lives when one crop failed. As a strange detail, one farmer insists on tasting each potato raw before trading. "You must know who you're handing over," he says, chewing thoughtfully on a chunk that would turn most stomachs. He offers you a piece. You decline, politely, then twice. Nearby, two boys build a miniature seed market out of mud and matchsticks. Each stall holds a pebble standing in for a tuber. One stall is mysteriously labeled VIP potatoes only. Even in mock economies, some roots rise above. You end up helping a woman carry her seed bundles back to her farm. She tells you about a potato that grows in the shape of a crescent moon, her family's favorite. "It never makes much," she shrugs, "but it's beautiful, so we keep planting her." You ask if that's wise. She answers, "Beauty is sometimes enough." As the sun drifts behind a curtain of lazy clouds, the square empties. The trades are done. New roots will be planted soon in new soil with old names. You find yourself holding a tiny purple potato in your pocket. It wasn't traded. Someone must have slipped it there. A gift maybe, or a joke, or maybe a quiet reminder you've been claimed just a little by the soil too. By now, your feet know the paths without asking. The stones underfoot are familiar. Even the breeze seems to greet you like a regular. The village has stopped treating you like a guest. You're just someone else with dusty shoes and potato crumbs on your shirt. And today, you're led to a terraced hill used only once a year for laws, the symbolic planting. This isn't for food, it's for memory. Villagers each bring a potato to plant not for yield, but to represent something they want to grow in the coming year. Patience, forgiveness, better sleep, fewer goats eating the laundry. You're handed a spade and a soft little potato marked with a charcoal star. You decide what it means, they tell you. You stand over your small patch of earth, feel the sun on your neck, and dig. When the potato is placed in the hole, you feel strangely emotional. Like it knows what it's been asked to do. You pat the soil gently, like tucking in a child. You don't say your wish aloud, you don't have to. The mountain probably heard it already. A boy nearby plants one and announces, "This one's for my sister to stop kicking me at night." The villagers nod gravely, a serious wish. The historical root, Andean communities practiced ritual planting as a form of social cohesion. Shared fields were worked together and certain rows were deliberately underplanted to appease local spirits, Apis believed to watch over the mountains. Fields in this sense were not just landscapes, they were shrines. A curious tidbit comes from your neighbor, who shows you a diagram sketched in the dirt, 3 concentric circles, each one representing a potato personality. The outer ring for sociable potatoes, the middle for dependable ones, the center for potatoes with secrets. She says her family only grows from the second ring now. Too many secrets last year. As you rest on a log afterward, a man with a donkey passes by, the animal's saddlebags full of painted gourds. He sells them door to door, each one painted with a different potato scene. One shows a tuber wearing a crown and sunglasses. "King of the Frost," he says proudly. It's unclear if the donkey approves. Later, back at the square, you hear the oldest man in the village mutter, "Even the seeds feel different this year." No one asks what he means. Some things are meant to linger unanswered. You hold the star potato in your palm one last time before burying it completely. You wonder what kind of plant a quiet hope will grow into, and whether it remembers who placed it there. On the sixth morning, the sky looks washed. Soft blue, pale streaks of cloud like someone gently wiped yesterday off the horizon. You're up earlier than usual. The villagers are already moving with a strange kind of quiet purpose, not rushed but steady, like they've all agreed to follow a rhythm that isn't posted anywhere but everyone knows. And today is La La's The Walk of Varieties, a ceremonial procession of every type of potato the village grows, laid out like a parade of the earth's most underappreciated royalty. Each variety has its turn, its story, its little platform carried on broad cloth, as if cradling something delicate. You're asked to help carry one, a small tray holding a cluster of perfectly round, pink-tinged tubers named La Tears of the Mountain. Someone leans in and whispers, "They always sprout during funerals." You look down. They are indeed shaped like small teardrops. You carry them gently with the gravity of someone escorting a minor deity. The path winds through the outer fields, past streams and outcroppings of rock smoothed by centuries of weather and waiting. Along the way, people stop and share tiny facts like confessions. This one saved us during the locust year. This one ruined a wedding with food poisoning, but we forgave it. This one tastes like soap, but in a comforting way. The historical fact of the day feels fitting. In 1767, Jesuit missionaries recorded over 1,200 distinct potato varieties in a single valley of southern Peru. Not just names, but characteristics, lore, even compatibility with other crops. Modern agricultural systems, with their standardized monocultures, would faint at the sight of such abundance. A whimsical moment arrives when two children break into a chant about a legendary potato that looked like a piglet. They called it, one says, "It squeaked when you boiled it." The other insists it oinked. Scholars to date have no formal record of squeaking tubers, but field notes do include unusual sounds during preparation in some oral histories. Interpret as you will. As at the midpoint of the walk, the villagers pause beside a towering old tree, its branches weighed down with faded prayer ribbons. Each person adds one more, a scrap of cloth with a wish or memory written on it. You're given one blank. You write something small. Let nothing be wasted. Not times, not feeling, not roots. You tie it high and let it go. By the time the procession circles back into the village, the potatoes are tired figuratively, and so are you less figuratively. Each tray is placed on the ground in a spiral pattern, forming a great sunburst of color and shape and weight. Though the wind picks up and the cloth rustles. For a moment, it sounds like the potatoes are applauding. This afternoon brings with it the last formal ceremony of the week, La Lo's, the reading of past harvests. It takes place in a simple hall near the center of the village, its walls lined with carved shelves holding rows of what look like dusty potatoes, but are in fact carefully preserved specimens from prior years. Each is marked with a date and a name. Each tells a story. As a local archivist, young, spectacled, far too serious to be under 30, leads the ceremony with the air of a museum curator crossed with a poet. He picks up one potato at a time, cradles it like a museum artifact, and reads aloud the attached note. You learn that in 1752, a yellow potato saved the village from starvation. In 1760, a blue speckled one fermented too quickly and caused unfortunate behaviors at a wedding. No elaboration is given. The potato from 1791 was flattened on one side. The note reads, "We stepped on her by accident and she still fed 12 people. We named her the Forgiving One." Your historical insight today: in several Andean communities, families have kept generational records of their crops not in books but in objects. Some potatoes were dried and preserved for decades, even centuries, stored with notes of origin, behavior, and events. They were more than specimens, they were family. One curious entry: a potato with a pinhole burned into it. The label reads, "Struck by lightning, survived, eaten ceremonially but caused a strange dream." The archivist reads this with a perfectly straight face. No one laughs. A soft musical cue plays in the background, just a harp slowly plucking the air. You sit on a low bench, eyes half-lidded, listening as more potatoes are remembered like old friends, misbehaving relatives, saints. One is described as the one we buried during the drought, even though we needed her. That's love, that's grief, that's something beyond agriculture. As a nearby elder leans toward you and murmurs, "Every potato has a season, but some return when they're needed." You try to nod wisely. Instead, you blink slowly and hope it looks profound. Before you leave, you're allowed to write a short memory of your own on a blank tag and tie it to an anonymous potato. You don't say what it is. But you place the tag on one shaped like a comma, unfinished, curved, expectant. And for the first time since you arrived, you feel like you've left something behind. Not lost, planted. By the 7th morning, the village hums with the gentle, sleepy rhythm of a Sunday that isn't called Sunday. Nothing official happens today. No rituals, no songs, no theatrical tributes to tubers. And yet, it feels like something important is still unfolding just below the surface. Like steam beneath the lid of a pot. You walk past open windows where families are gathered, not cooking, not doing anything in particular, just existing in that full, generous way that only happens when no one's rushing. There are potato peels on tables, yes, but also embroidery hoops, long size, cups of thick cocoa, and one toddler who seems to believe her job is to rearrange everyone's shoes. She takes it seriously. Someone calls you over to a low bench beneath a flowering tree you've never noticed until now. You sit with 3 women weaving wool dyed with potato skins and set in soft gradients of cream, rust, and pale purple. They don't speak at first. They just hand you a ball of yarn and nod. You try. You fail. They smile like it's all part of the process. Your historical moment of the day hides in plain sight. The use of potato skins in dyeing isn't just creative, it's ancient. Long before synthetic dyes, Andean peoples extracted tannins from tubers to tint cloth, thread, even paint. The color often depended on the soil the potato grew in, which, when you think about it, is like the earth itself helping you choose your palette. One woman explains that the colors carry meaning. Light yellow is for patience. Pink means the harvest came late but plentiful. Deep brown, that's for the year the priest forgot our names and called us all Maria. As a peculiar practice emerges. Some villagers leave one potato in each room of the house, changed monthly not for food but for absorbing restlessness. If the potato sprouts too quickly, they say the room is holding stress. If it stays firm, the room is at peace. You suddenly remember a room in your own house back home that never feels restful. You make a mental note to try it. The afternoon stretches, languid and loose. You sit near the plaza fountain where a child drops potato peels into the water and whispers wishes. Another child protests that's not how it works, but doesn't stop him. A slow parade of animals wanders past, mostly sheep and a goat that seems vaguely suspicious of you. A dog trails behind with a stick in its mouth, as if it's just performed a great act of diplomacy. The sun dips lower and someone strums a charango, its sound like raindrops in a quiet room. The melody has no urgency, no destination, just a loop of notes that seems content to keep you company. You close your eyes for a while, you don't sleep, but you drift. The village breathes around you. Nothing happens, everything happens. You wake to the smell of ashes and the rustle of corn husks. It's the 8th morning and there's a low buzz in the air, like the soil knows something you don't. Today is El Del, the day of shedding skins. It's not about snakes or metaphors, it's literally about potato skins. All throughout the village, people are peeling potatoes not for food but as a symbolic gesture. The skins are collected in large woven baskets, which are then taken to the river and released, like letting go of last season's burdens. It's not subtle. It's not supposed to be. You're handed a small knife and a purple potato. It looks like it's blushing. You sit with a circle of others, each lost in their own rhythm of slice, twist, drop. The peels fall like confetti made of memory. So someone next to you says, every peel is a story that's done enough. You want to believe that, you do. Your historical fact today, potato peels, long seen as waste in some cultures, were used in the Andes for far more than compost. They became dyes, poultices, teas, and even ingredients in ritual offerings. Peels weren't discarded, they were repurposed. Revered, nothing was useless if it had touched the earth. The funny moment breaks the mood. A man insists he once peeled a potato that looked exactly like his ex-wife's face. He tells this story often. Everyone groans. He still thinks it's hilarious. As after the peeling, the baskets are carried slowly, deliberately to the river. There's no music, just footsteps and the soft whisper of peels brushing against one another. At the water's edge, they're tipped gently in. The river carries them off like autumn leaves drifting from an old story into a new one. One child tosses in a particularly large peel and shouts, "This one's for my math teacher." Everyone nods solemnly, then giggles. As a strange detail you overhear, some elders insist that if you peel a potato in one continuous spiral and release it into the river while thinking of someone's name, that person will dream of you. A boy tries it. The peel breaks halfway through. He looks distraught. "Guess she won't dream of me," he sighs. Someone pats his back. You linger by the water, watching as the last bits of skin vanish around a bend. It's oddly beautiful, this quiet, peeling goodbye. Later, as the village returns to its rhythm, you find a small, smooth, unpeeled potato left on your blanket. No note, no explanation. You hold it in your hands, wondering, "Oh, is this the beginning of something? Or just the part you're supposed to carry home?" The ninth morning opens with a question you didn't expect. Have you named your potato yet? You blink, halfway through a warm bowl of a savory soup made from freeze-dried potatoes, garlic, and something mysteriously chewy that tastes like a benevolent mushroom. Across the table, an old man with wild eyebrows is staring at you like this is a perfectly normal breakfast conversation. He repeats it, slower this time. Your potato, you did keep one, didn't you? You hesitate, then remember the small purple tuber still sitting in your satchel, rounded, faintly heart-shaped, stubbornly sprouted. You nod, he smiles. Then it's time. Today is El Del, the day of the silent name. A tradition where people give their favorite potato a name, not to speak aloud but to be whispered once, at dusk, then never said again. It is said the name takes root in the soil of the spirit and helps the potato know itself. You laugh gently, then realize no one else is laughing. This is real. Deadpan, sincere, quietly magical, exactly like everything else in this village. Today's historical insight roots itself in language. Quechua, the ancient language of the Andes, contains dozens of words for potatoes. Not just color and shape, but potato that feels lonely, potato that surprises you, potato for grief. Nomming wasn't just function, it was emotion, memory, weather, identity. As a strange cultural tidbit, some villagers keep a personal potato as a kind of emotional support object. They carry it on difficult days, leave it beside their bed at night. If it starts to sprout, they say, it means it's ready to share the burden. You decide to name yours, not yet, not out loud, but sometime before dusk as tradition demands. The rest of the day is slow and quiet. People tend to small tasks, mending clothes, sweeping doorsteps, preparing meals thick with starch and stories. A girl sits by a window painting her potatoes with watercolors. Each one has eyes and eyebrows, one has freckles. Another looks like it's about to cry. She dabs it gently with a napkin and whispers, "It's okay." You walk through the fields again, this time alone. The breeze carries the smell of moss and ash. The sun hangs like a watching parent. You stop at a low stone wall and sit. The potato is warm in your palm. You hold it to your chest. Then you whisper the name. It isn't dramatic, nothing flashes, no wind stirs, but somehow you feel grounded, as if something, not just the tuber, is finally connected. And as the sun begins its slow retreat behind the mountains, you tuck your potato back into your satchel. It doesn't answer. But somehow it listens. The 10th morning feels like a threshold, half the week behind you, half ahead. The air is lighter, so are the villagers who moved today with more laughter, more mischief. It's not a festival day. It's something better, a village-wide game day. Specifically, Las Papas, the Great Potato Race. You're not dreaming, this is real. And children and adults gather in the central square, each holding a potato of choice. The rules are simple. You must roll your potato from one end of the square to the other using only your nose. Yes, your nose. A horn sounds. Dozens of villagers drop to the ground like migrating ducks and begin nudging their tubers forward. It's absurd, it's hilarious, it's strangely moving. Your assigned potato, hand-picked by the village matchmaker apparently, is a squat golden specimen with a smug tilt. You nudge it forward, it rolls, crookedly, you follow, face down, dignity abandoned. The crowd cheers like it's the Olympics. Here's your history for the day. Many Andean festivals included ritual games that blurred the line between worship and play. Some involved maze races, others tested balance or planting speed. These weren't just distractions. They were ways of bonding with the crops, learning their movements, their resistance, their rhythm. Potato races in particular were noted as early as the 1700s in traveler diaries, often dismissed as rural curiosities. But here they matter. As a funny moment, one man's potato is so lopsided it keeps rolling in circles. He names it L and wins the crowd's heart, if not the race. By the end, your face is covered in dust, your knees are scuffed, and your potato has finished somewhere near the middle. A girl gives you a ribbon anyway. For enthusiasm, she says. As afterward, the square becomes a picnic ground. There's laughter, spilled drinks, and plates of chilled mashed potatoes layered with avocado and chicken. The taste is light, salty, and celebratory, like if summer decided to dress up as a meal. As a curious tradition pops up here, villagers hold up their race potatoes and thank them no matter how they performed. "Thank you for being stubborn," one man says, kissing his on the head. "You taught me patience." Another woman bows to hers. "Thank you for showing me that my left nostril is stronger." Historians remain unsure whether these games were rooted in agricultural training or simple joy. Some speculate they taught children to respect and engage with the harvest in physical, playful ways. Others think it was just good fun, which, as the villagers here prove, can be sacred too. As the sun lowers, someone strums a single chord on a guitar. Everyone freezes for a beat, then starts cleaning up. Apparently that's the signal, no announcements. Just one note and the day folds itself away. You return to your mat, your satchel heavier by one dusty, brave little potato. And a ribbons. For enthusiasm. You wake up sore in places you didn't know could be sore from nudging a potato with your nose. Your back protests, your pride surprisingly intact. The villagers greet you with knowing smiles as if you've been inducted into a sacred order of potato rollers, which, in a way, you have. Time today is slower again, quieter but no less full. It's el las abuelas la papa, the day of the potato grandmothers. A day dedicated not just to the women who grow potatoes, but to those who remember them best, who know their stories, who still talk to them before boiling. In the shade of a clay brick wall, a semicircle of grandmothers has gathered, each with a basket of potatoes on her lap. Not for cooking, for storytelling, you join them on a mat that smells faintly of soap and thyme. They nod at you. One hands you a peeled potato, no explanation. The first grandmother begins. "This one," she says, lifting a tiny purple nub with the confidence of someone revealing a royal secret, "grew on a year I almost gave up." Her voice is thin but steady. "But she came out fat, beautiful, I stayed." Another raises a finger. "This one we call La, she always grew near the house and seemed to hear everything. Once, after a big fight, she sprouted early, like she was trying to get away." As everyone laughs gently, not loudly. The way you laugh when you've been alive long enough to know the punchlines aren't always jokes. Your historical fact arrives wrapped in a tale. For generations, Andean women passed down not just cooking methods but preservation techniques. One such method, sun-drying potatoes on straw, stomping them at night, rinsing them in freezing river water, became known as the dance of the women. The product could last for decades. In the mountains, a good supply meant winter didn't win. One grandmother tells of the time they fed a wedding of 50 with just one batch of. "We mixed it with wild herbs and sang a love song over the pot," she says. "That's the real secret, not the recipe, the tune." As a peculiar belief surfaces, one woman swears she once cooked a potato that revealed someone's lies. "It turned bitter, very bitter, and that night my husband confessed." The others nod, no surprise there. You're asked to share a story, you hesitate. Then tell them about your race potato. They nod politely, then ask if you named it yet. You say yes, they don't ask what, they wouldn't. The afternoon ends with each grandmother placing a single potato on a stone altar in the square. No words. Just a soft pat, as if saying goodbye to an old friend they'll see again soon. You leave with a small cloth pouch of one of them presses into your hand. "For when the days are long," she says, "and the food is quiet." Oh, you don't ask what that means. You already know. This morning, a chill runs down from the peaks like a reminder this land is kind but not soft. The village is busy layering. Wool scarves, knit hats, blankets over shoulders like cloaks. Even the dogs wear little vests. It's adorable and deeply practical. Today is El Del, the day of the cold guardian. It's a day for honoring what survives the freeze. The potatoes that didn't rot, the seeds that held their breath all winter, the old stone shelters that never cracked. At the center of the village stands a squat domed structure built partly underground and lined with straw and ash. This is the cold chamber. You're invited in. It's like stepping into a root cellar crossed with a shrine. Inside are stacks of seed potatoes, each carefully labeled. The air smells like clay, dust, and memory. Your guide is a stooped man with hands like bark. He points to a basket. These ones waited 4 winters before we trusted the earth again. They never blinked. Here's your historical truth. Andean farmers engineered sophisticated cold storage methods centuries ago. Using elevation, insulation, and ventilation, they could preserve crops in natural refrigerators without losing quality. Some designs were so effective, they inspired 20th century agricultural engineers. You're shown a ledger, a hand-inked record of which potatoes were stored when and for how long. Some are marked and others. The betrayer. Sprouted early, lost 3 rows. As a curious fact, some farmers believe the colder the storage, the stronger the potato's spirit. They harden, says your guide, like people do, but if you warm them too fast, they fall apart. In the square, a small bonfire is lit not to cook but to tell stories. Each person adds something that survived last winter: a shirt, a tool, a dried flower, a book. A boy adds his baby blanket, now patched like a quilt of old wounds. You're asked what you've kept through your own winters. You don't speak. You place a photo, creased and sun-bleached, at the edge of the fire. No one asks who's in it, they just nod. Later, as dusk falls, people eat warm slices of papa, boiled potatoes dipped in spicy sauce. You join a group on a hilltop, sharing food and silence. The wind hums like a hymn in a language only roots understand. And as you tuck your cold, reverent potato back into your pouch, you think of all the things that froze but didn't die. So some of them are still inside you. On the 11th day, the village wakes slowly, as if unsure whether to begin again or just stretch into stillness. You hear fewer footsteps this morning, fewer pots clanging, even the birds seem to glide more than flap. It's a day with no declared name, at least not one that gets spoken aloud. But when you ask about it, someone calls it El Endel, the day in the middle of the day. It's not for planting or piling, they say. It's for seeing. You're not sure what that means at first, but as you follow the villagers through narrow footpaths and stone alleys, it becomes clearer. Today, the tradition is to visit things that are usually ignored. Forgotten potatoes, abandoned fields, stones too ordinary to have legends, and shrines whose paint has peeled into anonymity. Your first stop is an old root cellar collapsed on one side. Inside, a pile of withered potatoes no longer suitable for food or seed. A woman kneels before them and whispers, "Thank you anyway." Then she places a piece of chocolate on top, not as an offering but as a snack. Even the forgotten deserve company. You learn your historical fact from a boy with a stick and an opinion. Colonial records once documented the wastefulness of Andean communities for keeping shriveled potatoes. What the records failed to understand was that some of these were memory keepers, used in rituals, dried for ink, even kept as warnings. Waste, Not quite, just a different form of reverence. A strange detail. Villagers sometimes carve sad faces into unusable potatoes and leave them in shaded corners, so they can mourn in peace. You find one sitting solemnly beside a mossy staircase, its mouth downturned, its eyes beginning to sprout like tears. At midday, everyone gathers for a comida, a silent meal. No talking, just the sound of chewing cutlery wind. You eat beside a family of 6 who communicate only through nods and eyebrows. It's not awkward, it's oddly intimate. The food, potato stew with squash and cumin, tastes warmer when no one's explaining it to you. Later, you walk through the oldest part of the village, where time has left its soft fingerprints. Cracked door frames, faded murals, the remnants of a once grand fountain now filled with pebbles and weeds. A young girl skips by, places a single purple potato into the fountain's center, and whispers for later. Now you ask her what that means. She just shrugs and says some things grow slow. That evening there's no music. No gathering, just soft candles in windows and people sitting by their doors looking outward, not at anything in particular, just seeing. You join them. You sit on your doorstep, potato in your lap, its skin faintly wrinkled now, like it's aged just enough to understand something you don't. Though the wind carries no answers, but it also carries no questions. And that feels like enough. The 12th morning starts with unexpected energy. Laughter echoes early. Doors swing open like applause. The stillness of yesterday seems to have been absorbed and transformed into motion. Today is La Fiesta Los Mil, the festival of 1,000 flavors. A day that may or may not include 1,000 flavors, but certainly does its best to try. The square has been transformed. Tables run the length of its longest sides, covered in dishes, jars, ladles, and baskets. And on every surface, potatoes in every conceivable form, some recognizable, many deeply confusing. Now you're handed a wooden spoon and told, don't think, just taste. You obey. The first bite is spicy, sweet, and somehow fizzy. The second is cold, grainy, and tastes like disappointment mixed with cinnamon. The third is divine. You do not ask what's in it. You don't want to ruin the moment. Your historical fact today is culinary. By the 1700s, Highland Andean kitchens used over 300 documented potato preparation techniques, from fermentation and smoking to stewing in river clay. Food here wasn't just nutrition. It was chemistry, memory, mood. A woman explains her dish: potatoes soaked in lake water, dried on the rooftop, then buried under leaves for 7 days while we argued about the recipe. You ask if the argument was part of the flavor. She nods solemnly. Adds tension. Tension is important. Nearby, a long table features the blind tasting. You're blindfolded and handed bite after bite of mystery mashed potatoes. Your job is to guess the mood of the cook. You get one right, I'm tired and proud of it, and 2 wrong, this one's furious. No, just cold. A curious event. The village judge, an elder who normally settles disputes about fences and wandering chickens, chooses the most confusing texture. The winner is a thick jelly made from fermented potato peels and beet ash. It bounces. It squeaks. It's memorable. Laughter fills the air. Someone plays a drum solo on a row of hollowed-out potatoes. A toddler wears a hat shaped like mashed potatoes with glitter on top. No one bats an eye. At the final table, you find a single dish resting under a bell jar. It's a tiny serving of mashed into a paste and served cold. The sign beside it reads, "This is how we survived 1793. No one is eating it not because it's bad, but because it deserves its silence. That night the village glows with firelight. Everyone sits together, bellies full, hands stained with sauces, faces warm. Someone leans over and whispers, "If you eat enough potatoes, you start to remember the ones that fed people before you were born." You nod, not sure if it's the food or the feeling. And then you reach for one more bite, just to be safe. The 13th day begins with thunder, but not from the sky. From feet, dozens of them, small ones, bare ones, some very determined ones in mismatched sandals. Today is El Del, the day of the little farmer. And children take over the village fields, not for play, for practice. With serious faces and tiny tools, they weed, dig, water, and plant under the watchful eyes of elders who hover just close enough to help but far enough to let the learning happen. The rhythm of the day, advice in whispers, encouragement in gestures, pride tucked into the corners of smiles. You're handed a small spade and paired with a 6-year-old named Julian who insists he's been farming since he was basically born. He points to a plot of land and announces, "We're doing soil potatoes today." You pause. "Do you mean soil potatoes?" He shakes his head. "No, soul, the ones that cry when it rains too much." You go with it." Your historical note for today is full of dirt. In pre-colonial times, children were introduced to farming as soon as they could walk in straight lines, which, according to some records, was never strictly required. They were taught not just how to grow, but when not to, which weeds to leave alone, how to listen for dry soil. Farming was not learned, it was inherited, absorbed. As a fascinating fact floats your way from a grandmother watching nearby. In some Andean villages, each child is gifted a seed potato on their 5th birthday. It becomes their responsibility for life. If it grows well, they're believed to become good parents someday. If it dies, they're told gently that some things take more than one try. Back in the field, Julian explains his planting technique involves singing. Loudly, off-key. The lyrics appear to involve llamas, thunder, and a potato who wants to go to school. You hum along. At lunch, children serve the meal, papas fritas con, fried potatoes with pepper sauce. Some are too crispy. Some are too raw, all are served with immense pride. You clean your plate and tell Julian it was perfect. He leans back, hands behind his head, and says, "Yeah, I know." A playful tradition is revealed in the afternoon. The children stage a potato fashion show, where they dress tubers in scraps of cloth, feathers, beads, and in one case a tiny hand-sewn cape. One is declared most mysterious. Another wins best use of toothpicks. Julian's potato, wearing an upside-down thimble, is named future president. As the sun drops behind the peaks, the children march through the village holding up their potatoes like torches. There are chants, offbeat drumming, and one very committed flute solo that sounds like a bird learning to swim. Adults line the path, clapping, laughing, pretending not to wipe tears. And you stand among them, heart full, nose stinging. Because one day, these hands will plant the memories you just lived. This morning something shifts, not in the air, not quite, but in the pace. The footsteps are slower, the greetings longer. There's an almost imperceptible hush that floats through the village, soft as flower and just as old. Today is El La Papa, the day of the non-existent potato. You think it's a joke, until you realize no one's cooking, no one's piling, no one's mentioning potatoes at all. Not even Julian, who now refers to them only as the things that used to exist. You ask around, is this a fast? Someone replies, it's a reminder. It turns out this is the one day of the year when villagers pretend potatoes never existed, to remember what life might have been like without them. People walk around meals, not toward them, they talk in metaphors. At lunch, someone serves a bowl of warm air with a spoon. Everyone nods solemnly and says it's filling. A man reads a dramatic poem titled Ode to the Root That Wasn't. And then there's a moment that stops you. A grandmother holds her empty plate and whispers, imagine the silence if they hadn't grown. Your historical fact lands gently here. In the mid-18th century, famine in parts of Europe was curbed not by local grains, but by the late arrival of potatoes, carried across oceans, ridiculed by aristocrats and planted anyway by desperate hands. Peru's native tuber saved lives it never saw. It's a curious tradition today. Instead of meals, villagers gather for imaginary potluck. They sit in circles and describe what they would cooked. One man pantomimes cutting and frying air. Another woman mimes stirring invisible soup, then says, regret with a hint of what could have been. You're invited to describe a dish. You say boiled nothings with sauce of missed chances. They applaud. A woman offers you a pretend potato chip. You crunch it thoughtfully. By mid-afternoon, someone rings a bell carved from stone. That's the cue for the return. One by one, people dig into their satchels and pull out their potatoes. They hold them aloft. The square fills with shapes, colors, scars, bumps, roots. No one says a word. And yet you hear everything. Then they whisper in unison. You could have been forgotten. They place the potatoes gently on the ground, like holding hands with the earths. Dinner is served, real food this time. Papa Allah mashed purple potatoes, fried golden ones, gratitude in every chew. That night you sleep with your potato beside you. Not out of ritual, just because. The 14th day dawns with dew on every surface. as if the mountains themselves decided to wash the village while everyone slept. The rooftops glisten, the fields sparkle, and in the haze of morning light, everything feels just a little more sacred. Today is El de la Papa, the day of the potato's reflection. It begins, curiously enough, with mirrors. Not the glass kind, the water kind. You're led to a long stretch of still, shallow pools dug decades ago in a rocky terrace, then reinforced each year with new clay and songs. The water is clean and quiet. No ripples, no fish, just silence. Above, the sky is overcast, but below, perfectly reflected. One by one, villagers bring potatoes and set them beside the pools. Not in, beside. The tradition is to look not at the potato itself, but at its reflection, long and slow, until it tells you something about yourself. You try, you sit on your knees. You hold your potato gently in both hands. It's lumpy, slightly bruised, familiar. The water shows a skewed version of both you and the potato, elongated, abstracted, somehow more truthful than the real thing. A woman nearby murmurs, "We use potatoes for seeing, not just feeding." Now today's historical moment feels fitting. Centuries ago, Andean diviners used reflective surfaces, bowls of water, obsidian, even polished gourds, to receive insight from the Apis mountain spirits. They believed the spirits could speak through shadow and surface. Potatoes were sometimes laid beside these reflections as earth witnesses, quiet companions to the revelation. Now you ask what you're supposed to see. The boy next to you says, whatever the potato wants to tell you. You squint harder, it still looks like a potato. But after a while, your mind softens. You start noticing your own posture, your breath, the gentle weight of something unspoken in your chest. Maybe it's not about seeing the potato at all. Maybe it's about remembering how to be still long enough to see yourself. Later in the day, villagers begin a ritual walk. Lala's the bent shadow walk. You hold your potato at eye level, letting the sun, if it decides to peek through, cast its shadow beside yours. The aim, to observe how the shape of your life changes depending on the angle of light. It sounds poetic, it is. A strange practice follows. A group of elders gather in a circle, each placing their potato on a mirror. Then they rotate the mirrors slowly while humming in a low, breathy tone. Someone explains, we're asking the ancestors if the seeds want to be planted again next year. Though the answers, you're told, arrive later, in dreams or gut feelings, or in how the soil smells when it rains. Now dinner is modest, a stew with white potatoes and pumpkin. No spices, just warmth. As night falls, the pools are covered with woven mats. Reflections, too, need sleep. And as you curl beneath your blanket, your potato resting just within reach, you wonder, what did it see in you today? And was it enough? The 15th morning begins with music, not from instruments but from kitchens. The sound of knives on cutting boards, of boiling pots hissing gently, of wooden spoons stirring rhythmically. Today is El Del, the day of the cooked memory. It's not about eating. It's about recreating one meal from your life. A meal so tied to emotion, it smells like a chapter of your story. You're paired with a woman named. She's 80, speaks in a whisper, and tells you she's going to cook the dish her mother made the day her father returned from the mines in 1962. He had dirt in his eyes, she says, and she gave him soup to see again. The recipe: a thick potato broth with garlic, 3 herbs she won't name, and something called loose stone. It's not an actual stone. It's a method of pressing the potatoes with the bottom of a hot cup to break their tension. While you help her peel, you listen. Your historical fact is simmering alongside you. Food in Andean culture has long served as oral history. Recipes weren't written, they were remembered, changed, sung. Certain potato dishes were only made during specific phases of the moon or after funerals or on birthdays of the dead. They weren't meals, they were reenactments. A beautiful detail. In this village, when someone dies, their favorite potato dish is made by someone who loved them but didn't always agree with them. It's believed the act brings peace, even in the aftertaste. It teaches you to stir clockwise. Counterclockwise is for forgetting, she warns, you don't test her. As the soup thickens, she tastes and nods. It's not the same, she admits, but it's close enough, he would smiled. Later in the square, people gather to exchange their dishes, not to eat but to explain. One man offers potato pancakes made with vinegar and regret. A teenager makes cold mashed potatoes with mint, because that's what her mom made when she apologized. You taste a bite here, a bite there. Not everything is delicious, but everything is real. As a funny moment, Julian presents his dish, a single raw potato with a pickle stuck in the top. This is what I was given the day my sister was born. I was very angry. Everyone applauds, he bows, the applause feels earned. As twilight falls, the villagers place handwritten versions of their recipes into a large clay pot in the center of the square. It is sealed with wax, not to be opened until next year, or never, it doesn't matter. Because the taste will live on in someone's mouth, someone's hands, someone's breath. And that's how stories stay fed. The 17th day is warm, not hot, not bright, just held. Like the weather decided to place a hand gently on your shoulder and say, "We're okay, keep going." Today is El Los Cruzados, the day of crossed times. It's not about the past, or the present, or the future. It's about how they speak to each other, especially through potatoes. In the central square, a large cloth map is unfurled. It's handwoven, roughly the size of a small boat sail. On it are stitched rivers, hills, farms, and tiny colored knots. Each knot represents a harvest and each color a year. Villagers gather to trace the map with their fingers. Here, where my great-grandfather's crop failed. Here, where we found a frost-resistant variety. This part here, that's where my aunt got married during planting season and no one showed up to the wedding. You're handed a piece of thread and asked to place it where you feel connected. You pick a spot near the edge where the stitches are older, faded. You press your thread gently through. A woman beside you murmurs, "Welcome to the memory." Your historical fact today is tactile. Andean cultures tracked agricultural history through tactile records, woven maps, not systems, layered textiles. This wasn't just data, it was time travel. The past lived under your fingers. The future was stitched next to your elbow. As a curious moment, someone brings a time basket, a wooden box containing potatoes from every decade since the 1920s. You hold one from 1941 wrapped in brittle cloth. The tag says, grown during the year of 2 droughts and 1 miracle. You ask about the miracle, the man shrugs. We never wrote it down, it just worked. Then comes the most solemn event. Villagers plant 1 potato per family into a ceremonial row called La Del, the line of later. These potatoes aren't harvested. They're left to grow wild, unattended for future generations to stumble upon. A literal inheritance buried under humility. And as you help cover the last seedling, a girl tugs your sleeve. When someone finds mine, she says, I hope they're kind to it. You nod and you hope the same for yours. The evening brings a quiet feast. Papa's stuffed potatoes served with stories hidden inside. You're told one person baked a tiny note inside theirs. A joke, a blessing, a warning you never find out. But you eat slowly just in case. Because some flavors only reveal themselves when time is ready. And tonight, time is sitting right beside you, quiet, smiling, and full. The 18th day begins with a sunrise so gentle, it feels like the sky is still deciding whether to show up. The mountains wear a soft pink blush. The village is slow to stir. But there's a feeling like the hush before music starts, not silence, but anticipation holding its breath. Today is El del Icojo Laws, the day of the roots, echo. It's not about the potatoes above ground, it's about what's still buried. What hasn't been seen or harvested or even remembered. You're taken to the old fields beyond the furthest terrace, the ones too rocky for farming now. They're dotted with weeds, sun-bleached tools, and one abandoned scarecrow that looks like it gave up mid-sentence. The villagers gather in a circle. They're here to wake the roots. One by one, they press their palms to the ground and hum, not a song exactly, more like a vibration. Low, repetitive, almost like bees trying to speak to dirt. As someone explains, the belief is that the roots of old harvests hold stories. Press your hand, make the sound, and they might echo back not with words but with memories. Maybe even dreams. You try it. The ground is cool and firm beneath your hand. You hum, nothing happens. Then maybe you feel a twitch, or maybe that's your pulse. Or maybe the past nodding quietly from below. Your historical route today. Archaeologists have unearthed potatoes buried for ceremonial reasons that predate the Inca by nearly 4,000 years. These weren't just forgotten crops. They were offerings, messages in soil. Long before written language, this was how people remembered, not in ink, in rootstock. A strange moment arises. A woman calls her dog only to discover it's unearthed a very old, perfectly preserved potato, white, long-eyed, soft as a whisper. She holds it up, gasps softly, and says, "This one was planted when I was 5. Everyone claps. No one questions it. Later in the day, villagers begin planting eco crops, not for eating, not even for growing, just symbolic. They carve names into small potatoes of lost people, lost places, lost parts of themselves, and bury them without marking the spot. They say the roots will find each other underground. You hold your own potato a long while. You think about the things you've lost, some taken, some walked away, some you misplaced yourself. You carve a word into its side, not a name, just a truth. Then you press it deep into the soil. No map, no grave, just trust. That night, no one speaks of what they buried, but the stars shine clearer than they have all week. And somewhere below, the past begins to hum back. You wake to bells, not loud, not rushed. Just a series of soft, uneven chimes that seem to drift through the air rather than ring. Today is El Del Sin, the day of gathering without harvesting. Now you ask what that means. Someone answers with a smile. Some things you don't pull from the earth, you collect them from each other. There are no baskets, no sickles, no dirty hands. Today's gathering is emotional, verbal, remembered. In the square, tables are set with empty plates. People sit and begin offering each other what they've grown: a story, a gesture, a new patience, a better silence. One man says, "I grew forgiveness." He passes a folded cloth across the table. A woman accepts it and replies, "I grew the ability not to need the last word." She places a stone on the table, smooth, oval, warm from her pocket. You're asked what you've gathered, you pause. You say, "Time that doesn't run away." Someone nods, they hand you a ribbon, you don't know what it means. But you tie it around your wrist and it stays. Your historical fact is this: many Andean villages practiced a philosophy of reciprocity. Not transaction, not charity, but balanced giving. One day you plant, one day you receive, some days you just show up. Potatoes were shared this way without price or expectation. So were stories, so were burdens. A beautiful custom unfolds. Each family offers one object into the mesa, the table of intentions. A dried flower, a broken spoon, a knitted square, even a button. Each represents something grown without being asked for. You place your ribbon. Then comes the floating word. Villagers speak a single word aloud, just one, and let it drift across the crowd. You hear, "The stubborn, all patience, or ready to turn, the rains, almost." You whisper yours too. It disappears into the air like steam off hot broths. Now dinner is shared in silence. Potato cakes shaped like leaves. A sauce that tastes like nostalgia and lemon. A dessert made from tubers and honey and mystery. Before sleep, you find your ribbon missing. But in your pocket is a small note made from old fabric. On it, a word you didn't write, but needed to hear. You look up at the night sky and feel gathered. The 19th day arrives with the scent of ash and sweet earth. Smoke rises lazily from a dozen small fires around the village, and the air is rich, not heavy, just full. Today is El del Lento, the day of the slow fire. It's not a holiday of drama, no dancing, no races, just slow-cooked meals, slow-spoken words, and memories softened like stew left on the hearth since dawn. At each household, pots bubble quietly, clay pots, iron pots, pots wrapped in damp cloth and buried in coals. What's cooking inside isn't just food, it's memory made edible. You're told fast flames don't bring back the past, they only burn it. You're invited to help stir a large pot filled with potatoes, lentils, and something floral. The elder beside you, chewing coca leaves with a jaw like a mountain ridge, says, "This recipe is for waiting, not for hunger." You ask how long it takes. He shrugs. Until it forgives you. Your historical moment is steeped in flavor. Andean cooking has always honored time. In Highland kitchens, foods were not rushed. Slow fire was seen as respectful to the ingredients, to the ancestors, to the stomach. Even offerings to the gods were left to simmer so the aroma could carry upward properly. It's a strange but tender tradition. Some villagers write letters to people who passed on, then wrap them in corn husks and place them beside the fire while the stew cooks. Not to burn them, just to warm the words so they rise gently. We don't send messages in smoke, someone says. We deliver them in scent. You write one yourself, folded small. You don't read it again. You place it under a stone by the fire and breathe in its quiet release. And as afternoon slouches into evening, a hush spreads. The food is finally ready. Each dish is shared slowly, no seconds, until everyone has chewed their first bite 3 full times. It's a rule. It's also a kindness. Though the stew is salty, thick, sweet around the edges, like a memory that softened while you weren't looking. And as dusk settles, people begin humming, not songs, just notes. Long, low, overlapping tones that sound like the village itself is sighing with full bellies and fuller hearts. Later, by a dwindling fire, Julian hands you a potato that's been charred on one side and says, "This one waited too long, but it's still good." Now you hold it. And believe him. Now the 20th day begins with something peculiar, stillness. No footsteps, no murmurs, the village sleeps late today, or pretends to. This is El del Suave, the day of the soft shoulder. It's a day to offer comfort without asking, to be a resting place, to say little, to notice much. People move more gently today, voices hover just above silence. You're handed a wool shawl and told to wear it like kindness. Children are encouraged to nap in unusual places, on tree roots, on laps, in hammocks made of potato sacks. No one rushes them. You're led to a shaded garden where small benches circle a stone basin. Inside it, water, rose petals, and 5 small potatoes, each painted with an eye. They're listening, someone whispers. They're tired too. The idea today is to check on someone without questions, to feed someone without asking if they're hungry, to sit beside someone without expecting them to fill the air. You sit next to a man who says nothing for 10 minutes. Then, out of nowhere, "I thought I'd be further along by now." You nod, he smiles faintly, that's all. Now, today's historical root runs deep. In pre-colonial times, a form of community labor was not just for roads or farming. Some days the labor was emotional. You helped a neighbor rest. You cleaned the house of someone grieving. You held space, not just tools. Today echoes that. As a curious custom, some villagers carry a smooth potato in their pocket wrapped in a piece of someone else's cloth. It's passed from person to person like a relay of comfort. You're given one wrapped in a yellow scrap with tiny stars sewn in. The child who gives it to you says, "This one has been hugged 12 times already. Now it's yours." You keep it in your palm all afternoon. It's warm by evenings. The supper is soft papa, mashed and creamed until it slides from the spoon like a sigh. No spices, just warmth. A meal you don't taste so much as feel. That night, villagers sleep outside beneath heavy blankets. No tents, just sky. If someone stirs from a dream, they reach out and find a shoulder nearby. You dream of floating potatoes with eyes that never judge. And in the morning, you will pass your warm little hug along. Because comfort, like roots, grows better when shared. The final day begins without fanfare. No drums, no flutes, no ceremonial phrases passed down through the centuries, just light, just warmth. The kind of morning that seems to touch everything without needing to be noticed. It's El Del, the day of the quiet returns. There is no fixed ritual, no grand finale. The villagers simply begin putting things back where they belong. Tools are returned to sheds. Stones moved for ceremonies are eased back into their resting places. Potatoes used in offerings are buried in unmarked corners of familiar fields. Now you ask what the day is for exactly. Julian shrugs and says, "For returning to what we never left." Now today's history is not recorded in any books, because today is not about a specific date or legend. It's about remembering that endings in places like this are really just pauses. A woman sweeps the plaza with a broom made of stiff grass. The festival doesn't end, she tells you, it sleeps in the soil. Nearby, a boy gently unties the tiny crown from the honorary potato. He kisses it, places it on a shelf with 3 others. You help tidy a corner of the garden. Someone thanks you with a folded piece of paper. You open it, a drawing of a potato with wings. It says, "You were here." You tuck it in your pocket, heart strangely heavy. There's a practice, quiet and sacred, that closes the day. La Del, the planting of the bond. As everyone plants one final potato, not for food, not for ceremony, not for story, just to connect. No marker, no names. The hope is that someday someone else will walk this same path and find roots where they weren't expecting them. You walk to the edge of the farthest terrace and dig a small hole. You hold your potato a moment longer than necessary. Well, then you place it in the earth. Gently, well, with a thanks. And as the sun lowers, villagers gather on rooftops and steps, not to watch anything, but simply to be still in the same light. Someone plays a single note on a wooden flute, not a song, just a punctuation mark. Julian sits beside you, legs swinging. Will you come back? He asks. Oh, you think you nod, maybe not in person, but yes. Oh, he seems satisfied. That night, the stars are unspeakably clear. They blink like they've been watching all along. You lie on your woven mat, hands behind your head, eyes wide open. The smell of clay, wool, and ash surrounds you. A comfort now. Now your satchel is lighter, but your chest is full. And before your eyelids finally give in, you whisper one more word to the potato that's no longer in your hands, but still somewhere beneath your ribs. Oh, gracias.